and we're off to the races.
We're here.
Yeah. How are you, man? Really though. I mean, I know I just asked you, but I mean, like, really, how are you?
I mean, I'm good. I think I was just talking to one of the guys from my label. We're mixing my new record, and he responded to me asking how he was doing by being like, "I'm good. I'm COVID good," which I think is an accurate way to answer that question these days. It's like things are good. I'm healthy. I'm relatively happy. I'm managing to get some creative projects moved along, which is a lot for the current period of time. So it's good to, I'm grateful for all of that. It's a weird year, obviously. It has been for everybody, but I'm doing okay.
Oh, why so? I don't understand why it'd be weird. I mean, it's
Well,
2016 again.
yeah. No, yeah, it's been an odd one, but things are good. Things are I'm grateful that I've managed to make it through this much of the pandemic and stuff without any major issues, just the issues of being isolated and waiting things out. But so I'm good.
Right. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as good as you can be. As good as it's gonna get.
Yeah, exactly.
As good as it gets, like that movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that movie
Yeah, like that one movie
that I saw a long time ago and I can't remember much about. But seems like it was, it's like that.
Dogs, Jack Nicholson. It's like that's basically it. That's the whole premise. In a nutshell. Yeah. But anyways, man, let's get into it. So you're from Canada, yeah?
Yeah, I'm from Canada. Exactly. I'm from Canada, from Edmonton, Alberta originally.
Mm-hmm.
Western Canada, just east of the Rockies, kind of like it's sort of like Canadian Montana, or kind of like a Canadian Texas. Alberta in general is, because we have cows and oil and conservatives. And then I moved to Toronto and then Montreal, and now I've made the full trek down to LA, and then promptly the world ended like 6 months after I started living here. And then me and my girlfriend moved out to Landers, California. So that's been I'm a Canadian who's now suddenly made the jump down to living in the States.
So you brought this on. I mean,
I brought it with me, apparently.
Yeah, 6 months.
Good. I do think that the universal, force or God or whatever you want to call it was just like, this is too good for you. You don't. It was like 6 months of just being like, wow, people have just been living in LA this whole time, and it's just this much fun and never cold and stuff. And then the universal force was just like, this isn't for you. You need more more adversarial times. You need more problems.
It's too easy. It's too easy, and
right now
we're not gonna have it. No way.
Yeah,
we gotta change it up.
Exactly.
Yeah. But when you were younger, living there in Edmonton, in Toronto, Montreal, and everywhere, what was the music scene like? Like when you were a kid?
I mean, Edmonton was I came up with in an interesting generation. I think Edmonton's always had a history of having a strong music scene. My parents are both musicians, and there's a lot of history there in the music scene, but it's very isolated. It's like one of the most northern cities of its size in the entire world. It's like over 1 million people population, but it's just fucking like, it's 3 hours north of Calgary. It's fucking 12 hours east of like Vancouver. It's like very much just kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And so my generation was one of the first generations, I guess, that had access to the internet. Was probably a big shift. Like when I was like, a preteen, we all started getting on MySpace and everything. And then that scene that I kind of grew up in was like Mac DeMarco, me, Home Shake, or it wasn't called Home Shake at the time, but Peter Sagar from Home Shake was doing his thing, and my cousin Renee Wilson, who I've collaborated on some of my records with, was also doing his own stuff over there, and who's done a bunch of other stuff since then. But Sean Nicholas Savage is another guy. He's not as famous down in California, I find, or at least not amongst the crew that I hang out with, but he's got a big name in Europe and stuff. So it was kind of funny that we were just a whole crew of people who all kind of, we were like, knew each other when we were like 18, 19 and are in and around there and playing really small shows together. And it just happened that almost every one of us has kind of pursued music seriously for the rest of our times and has traveled all around the world to do it. And obviously Mac DeMarco is a massive star now, as is Home Shake really too. But so it was an interesting scene to come out of.
Never heard of him. Never. It doesn't ring a bell, but okay. Sean Nicholas Savage, yeah. Bye. Yeah.
You know about that, but you know about the early shit. That's crazy.
I'm with it.
That was the record that like when we were all at that age in Edmonton, that was like that record like eclipsed everything else for a while. As a musician, I both liked it, but also I think I had to like adjust to the fact that it was like, oh, it's gonna be like 3 months of just everyone talking about Sean for a while until somebody could actually finally have like bandwidth to deal with my new record or whatever I was working on at the time. But that was a big one in Edmonton.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you said Mac DeMarco. Yeah. It
Yeah.
kind of rings a bell. I love Makeout Videotape. I think he was a part of that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and that was also
Yeah.
a big thing was fucking makeup videotape at that time. I mean, that started when he moved to Vancouver. He moved to Vancouver really young, but that was still like he was in bands in Edmonton and we were all hanging out. And then he moved to Vancouver and then he started that band and then he kind of blew up in Vancouver. And then that was like eventually he came back and made the last makeup videotape record. Then he moved to Montreal and then launched his solo career. But yeah, just it was a small crew of friends. Mac was family friends with me. Like my aunt and his mom were like best friends, or were best friends, and that was like yeah. So and then Peter too. Also, his dad played in my dad's band, so it was like a bunch of people. Sean had
Wow.
connection to, but it was like kind of just a small crew of people that we all kind of like distantly knew each other as children. Matt gave me chicken pox when I was 5. Actually, they like conspired to get us together so I would get chicken pox at a young age.
A party. Yes.
Yeah, it was a chicken pox party, and
For shingles too.
yeah. Oh yeah, we didn't do the shingles, so hopefully
That's coming. It's coming.
yeah, exactly. But the yeah. Anyway, so we were just like kind of buds, but we didn't really know each other that well. And then when we started playing in bands in our teen years, then we were all like, "Hey, I remember you from fucking being little kids." And then we started like to get tighter, and then it's just kind of gone on from there.
Yeah. I mean, that's sweet. Since you're Canadian, I want to ask you this question, man. Can you explain to me why all the other provinces in Canada have secondary school from 9th to 12th, but Quebec is from 7th to 11th? What is up with that? Can you explain that?
So we go. The way that my high school and junior high worked was it was like at least how we call it anyways. I don't remember what you guys say down here. In elementary
No, no,
school.
no, no. That is it. I was trying to lean towards you, how
Oh,
you would say it.
okay.
I was trying to relate to
I
you.
feel like you guys said, okay, junior high was 7 till 9, and then high school was 10 till 12. That's the way it was in Alberta. So that might be a bit different than down here. I don't understand. Quebec just does their own thing on all levels. I've lived there too, and like they don't follow the regular rules of Canada, which is that's their right, I suppose. They're the French province, and it's a very different place in a lot of ways. So they just kind of do their own thing. There's a number of things with them where it's just like you can buy beer at convenience stores there, which is kind of like American and cool. I like it, but then they have a lot of regulation about their liquor stores, so it's kind of less cool. I don't know. They just do weird things there.
Yeah, like I mean, is it how it is like Edmonton and in Toronto and in Montreal? The same fact that it's all liquor stores, like specifically liquor stores that you can't get it in like a grocery store.
Yeah. How does it work? The difference in Alberta, it's just private. The liquor stores are all just private, and they sell beer and liquor, but they're just like specifically. I mean, you might get some in the grocery stores. I'm trying to remember, maybe, but like mainly it's these private liquor stores. But in Quebec and Ontario, it's mostly government-run liquor stores. It's all like publicly run or whatever the hell, and that's kind of a weird thing. But then in Quebec, just to throw a curveball, they're like, but you can get beer at grocery stores. So they keep you on your toes over there.
Oh, that's so odd.
Yeah.
That's so different. So the first time that you traveled outside of Canada, was that on tour or was that on your own thing?
That's a good question. I think the first time I might have gone outside of Canada, I think was flying to Dallas because I had cousins who lived in Dallas, and we would go visit. They actually lived all over the place because from my uncle's work, and so we visited them like in lots of different places. But the first time I think was flying to Dallas, and there's a huge like thunderstorm in Dallas, and I had to we like circled the city for like forever, and then eventually they landed us in Shreveport, Louisiana, and we got put up in a hotel by the airline. But that was my first time leaving Canada. But I got a better idea of I got a more personal experience of the States when I started touring, which the first time was like touring. I was playing bass for this band called Slim Twig. It's out of Toronto. That's kind of like, it was like Meg Remy from US Girls was also on that tour because she is married to Max, who was Slim Twig and now does this thing called Badge Epoch and works on the US Girls stuff. But we were on a tour with those guys, and they brought me down as a bass player. I think I actually snuck down that one time, but and then we fucking stopped. Then from that point on, I got visas and stuff. But that was a crazy time where I really felt like I was like, whoa, I'm in the States and I'm touring. I kind of felt more like connected to the States and got to like kind of road trip all over the place and like meet people who were interested in the same stuff as me. Whereas when I was in Dallas, I was just like fucking, off in the suburbs somewhere, arguing with kids about hockey.
And you were not, you were on the, you were on the lam rather. I mean, you were legit. How did you sneak into here? What was the move? Did you just kind of lay down or what?
I don't remember. Actually, no, I might have had a visa for that one. I can't remember. I mostly have been very good about my time down here. Right now, I've got a legit 100% visa, and I've managed to. I'm legitimately allowed to live here, which is great. And that was actually I had to get my newest visa during my time with during COVID, so that was a little bit of a nightmare. But I've got it now, so I'm allowed to be here, which is great.
I mean, you make it real hard to incriminate you. I'm just trying to get some dirt on you, but whatever. We'll get there.
Okay. I think I've always been legit. I'm above table.
I don't like it. I don't like it. Above the board? No way. Yeah. So both your parents were musicians, yeah? I mean,
yeah.
And how big of an influence was that on you?
I think big. I mean, my parents are both like my dad had spent a lot of time doing a lot of crazy stuff in music. He managed to do before he had kids. He was really like he went down and did some sessions in Nashville and played with some like serious session players who played on big famous records and stuff. And he did a lot of tours with like some really legit blues guys as a guitar player and stuff. And so he'd done a lot of cool stuff. So that was always like an influence on me, that it was like, whoa, my dad like has done crazy stuff that most people's dads haven't done, especially from Edmonton. Like, I think if you grew up in LA or something, like it's kind of like that doesn't like, so-and-so's dad is like a big session player or like writer or comedy guy or TV personality or whatever. That's just normal. But when you grow up in Edmonton, the fact that like my dad had done some cool stuff in his life was like really like striking and interesting, and made me kind of be like, maybe I could do cool stuff when I get done with high school and can go out and do things. So it always kind of gave me something to aspire to try to do some of that kind of stuff myself. And my mom also is my dad also taught me guitar, and my mom is a really great singer who had actually been to like school for music, which I haven't, and my dad hadn't. So she like taught me how to like arrange harmonies and stuff, which has become actually a large part of what I do in my adult music life. It's kind of one of the signature things about my project, I'd say. So they both had their own influences on me in their own ways.
Served a purpose, definitely.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
That's great. Did you go to college, or was it just straight out of the gate?
I didn't make it out of high school. I pretty much wanted to drop out of junior high school. At like grade 8, I was just like, why am I here? I know I just want to play music. Like I was like, I wasn't amazing yet, but I wasn't amazing. And I'm still
yet. But, no, yeah. That was the correct way to say it the first time.
Well, that's nice of you to say. I just mean like, I probably couldn't do, I wasn't as able to do the jobs that I now currently do in music at the same level that I can now. But I was still already starting to have some people be like, hey, you're good at guitar. And like even older musicians were like into what I was doing and stuff. So I was just kind of like, okay, let's just get out of like, now I don't have to keep going to school and just wasting my time. Like I know what I want to do. I know I want to put all my time into this. So I made it through to grade 11, and then I finished grade 11, and then I did homeschooling for grade 12, but I didn't quite complete all the credits. So
okay.
I just never quite graduated from high school.
That's good. No, but you knew. You're like, this is it.
I was definitely, the thing that would happen, like after I finished my year of high school, of like homeschooling in high school, I tried to go back and do a grade 12 math course, which I was actually okay at math, surprisingly, but I had taken like a year and a half or 2 years off from the last time I'd done math. And so I was like, just totally like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. So I was just failing this course at another like post high school place. And then I was also getting like more and more gigs, and I was touring around a lot playing solo guitar in like Western Canada. And I was starting to like make money. I mean, that was way easier actually back then to make money as a solo artist in Western Canada than it is as like trying to carry around a full band and stuff now, and try to be more ambitious about what I present. But so I was like making money and stuff. And so eventually I was just kind of like, to my parents, I was like, I just can't, I'm sorry to break it to you, but I'm not going to pass this math course. I just know that I'm not going to. And then B, I don't know if I need to like redo it or take another course, because it seems like I kind of getting busy with something else. And so I was like, I think I kind of was just like, listen, if I hit a real rock wall at some point in time and music's really not going well, I'll go back and finish one more course for high school, and then I'll go to like a university course of some sort, or college or something. But it hasn't come to that yet. There's been some close to rock walls, but I managed to get around most of the walls that have come up so far.
Yeah, you still got to keep those math books. It's within reach. Within reach.
I mean, that does kind of sometimes bother me. Occasionally I have dreams about that unfinished business with that math course where I'm like, go back to it for the first time and it feels like it's been like 15 years because it's been, or almost whatever. And so then I'm like, wow, I just don't remember anything. And they're trying to get me to like do a test. And I'm just like, oh my God, that's one of my anxiety dreams is that math course, like resurfacing from my subconscious because I just left it unfinished.
I heard that that's like common though, like with schooling, and it's like people will just like have nightmares, like, oh my gosh, I didn't finish that course, or like they haven't gone to this class through the whole year, and it's the final.
That's exactly the dream I have. It's always like that. It's always that class or a similar class, and they're always like, wow, you haven't been here in a long time. And I'm like, you're definitely right. I can't remember the last time I came to this, which is fair because it's been forever. And then they're like, yeah, I mean, it's the final tomorrow and you have like 18 projects you have to finish. And I'm just like, oh God. And then I'm like looking through notes, and in your dreams, you can't even make sense of notes or numbers really. So it's just like a complete shit show. And then I wake up and I'm like, okay, thank God I'm glad I didn't pursue mathematics because I don't remember anything about it anymore.
Do you feel like you'll get it done eventually? Like, I mean, like as of right now, as of 1:09 in the afternoon?
Probably not. So, I mean, sometimes, as I said, I do have like this weird part of me that's kind of like, I was kind of okay at math, and like I kind of feel like halfway through the previous year, like the grade 11 math course, I stopped trying. And I think there's something about just being like, I'm like, it would be kind of nice. The thing is too, is that the Oilers went to the finals, the Edmonton hockey team that year in grade 11 math. And it was such a big deal that I remember even my math teacher would come over and talk to us about the games when we were supposed to be doing work. And I think at that point in time, my understanding of math started to deteriorate, and hockey kind of ruined math for me. And I would like to go back and just have completed the whole thing and been like, well, actually, I understand high school math all the way to the end. I was doing pretty good until the halfway through grade 11. But some things are starting in the cards, and I don't know if I'm ever going to really get into that more advanced math stuff. It'd be cool maybe, but it probably won't happen.
So it's because of the fucking Oilers that you're not doing math.
Mostly because of the Oilers. I think I could blame quite a few things on the Oilers, actually. Currently, my sanity is being negatively affected by the Oilers because everyone thought they're going to be good this year, and it turns out they suck. So that's been, there's a lot of things that I could pin on the Oilers, I think, throughout my life, but that's one of them.
Yeah, and arguing with the kids in Treeport about hockey.
That was true. It was in Dallas, but
Dallas.
Edmonton upset Dallas that year, and I was like repping my Oilers jersey down there, and neighbor kids were like pissed off because it was a big series between Dallas and Edmonton right before that.
The rivalry runs deep.
Exactly. That was a big rivalry when I was a kid. Anyways, we don't have to get into hockey. I can talk hockey all day, but I feel like that shouldn't be the focus.
That's another podcast. Yeah, I'll have you on the other one. Yeah, I just talked about Canadian hockey. That's it.
That's great. That's perfect.
Yeah. But all right. So you're like, all right, I'm done with school. I'm just gonna do music. I mean, at that point. So how old are you? Like 14, 15?
No, 16? No, I didn't drop out quite that young. I was probably like 8. I was 18 because I was still in homeschooling or like weird like correspondence schooling or something when I was 17, and then I turned 18. Then I finished that, and then it would have been 18, 19 that I was like finally dropped out of this other thing, and then just started touring at that point in time. And then I kind of built up from like touring solo in Western Canada to like having a band, and we were kind of getting better gigs in Western Canada. But at one point I got a gig. It's actually kind of funny foreshadowing for how my whole life ended up going currently, is that I got my Western Canadian agent at one point was a really cool dude who I knew from Edmonton, and he ended up becoming my agent at this company out of Toronto, strangely. And he got me the gig to open for Charles Bradley in Vancouver and Victoria, like right when he was blowing up. And I didn't even know what I was getting into. Like I already knew about the Dap Kings and stuff, and Daptone, but I hadn't gotten hip to Charles yet. And so I was like, he was really excited. He got it from me. I was like, once he explained to me what it was, I was excited. And then I listened to it. I was like, oh, this is really good. But Charles was like really new to like touring. Like it might've been his first 2 Canadian shows, or like right at the beginning of the whole thing. And touring outside of the States wasn't that usual yet at that point in time, I think. So if people knew about him, it was probably mainly in like Brooklyn. And then, and like, maybe some other people had caught on a bit earlier than me. But in any event, I had no idea what to get into. No one told me that he was as intense of a performer as he was. So I went and did that show. He blew my mind. He was like crying and hugging everybody in the crowd and just being like Charles. And I got to be friends with some of the guys on the Daptone scene. And this is way before I signed with Daptone and WIC, their subsidiary. But it just kind of laid the groundwork for that. But initially what happened was it also just convinced me that I was like, wow, that was amazing. And then I was like, but it's so rare that a cool band comes through Western Canada that I get the opening slot. And I usually just get like I kind of would get a lot of gigs offered for like playing for like bands that just weren't in styles that I was interested in at all, and on festivals with lineups that weren't bands that I was interested in. So that basically caused me to eventually blow up my whole thing that I built up in Western Canada and just moved to Toronto. And that was kind of the beginning of the more modern era of my music life. Although maybe it's the previous era now because now I'm in LA, so I might have opened a new era. But the Toronto Montreal era was kind of me moving away from home and trying to sort of pursue a more worldwide music career type thing, you know.
Gotcha. What? And this was the Nightshades, yeah.
Oh yeah, you know some weird old stuff. No, the Nightshades was
I'm
actually
fucking Nardwar's kid, man. You know.
that's pretty amazing. No, but the Nightshades that was my very first band, I think. Maybe there was a couple failed attempts, but that was really the first band that was like that I was writing songs for and playing, and that was a live band. But that was very short lived. That was like we didn't record anything. We did a few shows. I stole some of the early songs to put on my own solo, like first solo project stuff that I made when I was like in high school. I didn't steal their songs. I took my songs.
Oh, sure. That's what they all say. That's what they all say, Michael.
When I got sick of playing with that group, I was like, fuck you guys, I'm taking my songs, I'm gonna make them myself. And then that band got kind of popular in Edmonton. But then the stuff I'm talking about, as far as that was teenage stuff, that was high school stuff. The stuff I'm talking about was touring in Western Canada. That was like the beginning of just being. I put out one record that was like on a Canadian major label that isn't really available down here. That's called Mamio, and that kind of got me like some bigger management and stuff like that, and kind of like started to attract music industry attention or whatever. And then that time I was still touring just in Western Canada. That was kind of what I was talking about. Then at that point, I stopped doing that, moved to Toronto, and started, trying to pursue connections to, I don't know, just more like complementary or more like-minded people in music. Like, once I got to Toronto, it was more like hanging around with people who were like, I don't know, seemed cool, rock and roll, garage, punk, old, eventually old soft rock and old, obviously old like 60s and 70s and stuff too, but just kind of like a scene that was like less based around kind of like, I don't know, just Canadian Western Canadian. Like I would get offers in Western Canada to open for like bands that were calling themselves surf rock, but it was not like, or like surf or something, but it wasn't like surf rock like Dick Dale. It was like weird like Jack Johnson, like folk from like the interior of BC, like no name brand Jack Johnson shit, I think. So I was just like, I don't want to do that.
That's the kind of stuff that I consider surf rock. I don't know who this Dick Dale person is, but Jack Johnson, man, he's great.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, it was that kind of stuff. So I was, and each their own. I don't mean to be like a snob or anything, but I just realized that I was like, yeah, maybe a bigger city that's kind of on a touring circuit would be nice to live in. So
right, a hub of some sort, I'm assuming.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. So in relation to to you being on your own with, under your own name, Michael Rault, has there been a difference in how you write, like as opposed to, has it changed at all since like Whirlpool to It's a New Day Tonight?
Yeah, I think it changes all the time. I think, identity is an interesting question, whether you have a cohesive identity as a human or not, or if you're just constantly just a weird combination of weird factors that are around you. I don't know. But I do feel like I just kind of change a lot throughout the years. I think that moving to Toronto really started a whole different, it was like, I think that Whirlpool, bringing that up that's another deep cut. That was like, I was writing that after that Mamio record.
The deepest here, Michael.
Pretty deep. And I was mostly like writing that in Edmonton, actually. So I moved to Toronto with that in hand, and it was an interesting like stepping stone towards the Living Daylight record, which ended up being the one that Burger signed. And that was the Living Daylight record was the one that I got signed to Burger, and then that started my whole like foray outside of Canada. Before that, everything I'd done had just been released in Canada or on the internet, no like proper distribution or whatever outside of Canada. And that Whirlpool thing, I just kind of moved with those songs. And then I was like, there were supposed to be demos. And then for some reason, I guess maybe just all the changing in my life at that time, I kind of just decided, I was like, I don't really want to go into like writing the other half of this record and like re-recording it, because I don't really feel so much has changed. I don't really feel like making that record anymore. So Whirlpool just became and I was just like, let's just get it mastered and just put it out as an EP because I don't really feel like messing with this anymore. And then I started writing Living Daylight in Toronto. But I do think that moving to Toronto totally changed my sound for a while. And I think that moving to LA, I think in time is going to probably change my sound quite a bit too. It's just like you kind of fall, different cities have different musical identities. Even like post, you know, the internet, there's a lot more being said about how like regionalism isn't as important anymore, but I still do think there are just sort of like weird undercurrents in music scenes, maybe because music scenes are sort of like organically connected to sort of like a oral tradition or like a just the more old school tradition that it's like there's always the old dudes in the scene who were like playing before the internet even existed, who are like into whatever was cool in that scene, and that kind of still trickles down through even younger people and people who are listening to things from all over the place. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like my songwriting approach, just through maybe personal growth, but also through different influences of the surroundings, I think changes quite drastically.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be that way, which is good. I mean, it's always evolving, always changing, right?
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, there's definitely things. I mean, we were just doing we've been very isolated, but we've had to take a couple times where Pearl, my girlfriend, Pearl Charles, has a album out right now. It's actually doing quite well. And I played on that a little bit as well and have been playing it with her band quite a bit. And we've been mostly in isolation, but occasionally we have to do these live streams, so we all get tested and safely get together, masks and everything, and do a little live stream together. And but we were listening to this Larry Carlton record, who is like this dude who played a lot of session stuff for like Steely Dan and Joni Mitchell. Like he's like a heavy LA session dude, and he has this one really great like 1973 solo record, which is like just great singer songwriter stuff with like amazing guitar playing. Actually kind of bounces around from like weird proggy jazz rock to like great soft rock. But we were showing it to our friend Marcus, who was playing bass on that session, and he, like myself, grew up with a certain amount of punk influence as a young kid, but we've both grown to like a lot of different things. But we were really loving this crazy extravagant soft rock record by Larry Carlton. But he was like, as he was enjoying it, he said, he was like, yeah, 16-year-old me would like punch me in the face right now for for listening to this. And I was totally like, I totally know what you mean. Like even like 22-year-old me would probably be like, this is not my jam, dude. Like I can't hang with this. But now I'm like, I don't know, it just sounds so good. Everything's played so well and it sounds so amazing. So I don't know, you change, I guess. You also might soften up, I guess, with age. Who knows?
Sure. But you recently just celebrated your birthday. Now, how old are you?
I'm 32 now. So
32 now.
In my 30s, 30s is probably going to be a whole new phase. Maybe it's going to be real soft. I don't know. We'll see.
It's a new era, the softest.
It could be potentially. Although at the same time, I also am like, I still do have a weird affinity for harder sounding things. So it might not ever fully get beaten out of me. I'm not sure.
We'll see. I'll check back up in you 10 years down the line.
Yeah. It could,
41.
It could be totally, I mean, that probably will be totally different. And I probably can't predict what it'll be like.
Electropop, I'm assuming. I'm just calling that right now, but we'll see.
I mean, I would love to do a drum machine record, but probably more like JJ Cale or Slim or fucking Sly and the Family Stone or whatever, or McCartney too. Those I would love to do that, but it would be like old school drum machines that sound ridiculous with lots of live instruments. I don't know about electropop, but maybe, who knows?
I don't know, But so what was when it was your band, when was the first time you toured? And where was it?
My band touring, you mean, I guess, like, so for me, it started in Western Canada with my band touring, but then I broke that band up, and then I didn't tour for a long time. When I moved to Toronto, it was kind of like, I'm going to get off the road for a bit and just focus on trying to write the record that I want to write and seeing if I can't get into the States a bit more. And then I toured with Slim Twig down in, and we went all the way down to like Raleigh, and we did a couple places in the South, and then we did like, I think we might have played DC, and then we did New York. And that was kind of my first foray into the States. And then when my band got signed and we actually got a visa for the first time and started touring in the States, that was like, we just went everywhere from that point. That was like started just a complete like, that was like a little bit of a introduction into what it's like to be a real road-worn indie band who sleeps on couches and floors all over the world.
Oh, was that was the move?
That was just like, we just went hard. We had like a year visa, and we had the record out, and we were getting a lot of press, and like some of it was pretty impressive, like mainstream American press, and we're just kind of like, whoa, I guess we should just. So I just kind of formed a band because it was like the record had been mainly done by me and my cousin, who I mentioned before.
Which record are we talking about at this
Living
point?
Daylight, that record.
Okay.
And at that point, it was just like, so we just went like, I don't know, we almost did like 100 shows in the States, but mostly in the States over the course of, I guess we did Europe too that year, but we just went nuts. I mean, it was really overly ambitious. In retrospect, I feel like with both of my last records, I was very overly ambitious with just being like, we just got to keep playing everywhere, man. And like, ultimately, maybe I could have just made another record sooner and got more press and then gone and done more shows. But I was just really dead set on being like, we got to get in front of everybody. And it probably had its advantages, but we went, all over the States. There's very few places in the States that I haven't played at this point in time. There's a couple notable exceptions, but mostly I've been to a lot of places over the last few years.
What was one that really stuck out in your mind? I mean, just a place in general, not so much a show.
I mean, New York City is a crazy place to wrap your head around. It had more of an impact on me initially than like Los Angeles did, as far as I guess those are the two obvious major places. And New York is just so like obviously like awe-inspiring when you drive over a bridge into Manhattan or whatever and just see the skyline. You're just like, this place is huge. And like, nowhere else. I've been to Europe and stuff before that, but nowhere else that I've been, even famous cities, has quite that same level of just like, I don't know, just giant place that's just like so full of stuff. But yeah, New York was really cool. And the first time we played in New York was really like mind blowing. It was just a show in some like upstairs. Like it wasn't even a regular venue. It was like upstairs of some club in like Manhattan that a friend of mine put on for us. And it was like a lot of people there. And that was just exciting to be like, whoa, we played like a small show, but it was packed full of people and everybody was excited. And it was in New York. Like, that feels crazy. Especially like growing up, I used to watch like Ghostbusters as a kid and stuff in Edmonton and be like, wow, why is like nothing's ever about like Edmonton. It's always about like New York and stuff. So like playing a show in New York had like a particular childhood impact of being like, I'm playing in like a real big city and the show went well and that's crazy. So that was cool. New Orleans was also rad too. I'm a huge fan of New Orleans R&B and history of New Orleans music. So I only played there once and we drove a really long drive and we arrived, like played the show, tried to kind of party a little bit. We were like super tired. I passed out at the place we were staying at and then we like drove out. But just the look of the city driving in and out was like pretty mind blowing, and just being there and having a good show as well in a place that I was like, this is New Orleans, man. This is crazy.
Yeah. Does do any shows that you've played like really stick out in your mind? Like that was insane for good or bad reasons?
Yeah, there's highlights in my mind. I guess this one is a good one to say for good and bad reasons. Is that at the end of the last touring cycle, I had a pretty hard European tour. Like I just really like a bunch of stuff didn't come together financially for me. So like basically halfway through the tour, I was like, this was a bad idea financially, but I didn't know that until we were like doing it. And I was like, well, I guess this is just what I'm doing now. Is it not a good financial choice? And so that was like kind of weighing on me. And I was also going through like a breakup at the time. And also the band ultimately was basically my live band for the last record cycle was like no more. And that was the last tour. So like, and also my management and me split at that time. So that was I was just under a lot of pressure. And I was just like basically like halfway through like a month-long tour of Europe. And like a lot of it was in the UK in like November, which is, I think most people, I don't even think people, this is no diss for people from the UK, but I think even people from the UK would be like, UK in November is like quite depressing. Like it's just dreary and like wet and damp. And I was like dealing with all this stuff. And then the good element of it was that we played this one show. It was like we were opening up for other bands, which was okay, but it wasn't really the best time in the world for those because it was just, always the afterthought. But we played a show at a small pub in London called Stag's Head, I think. I'm sure there's 1,000 Stag's Head. I don't know which one it was. But
It's a chain.
Yeah, is it? Okay.
No, I don't know.
It might be. I mean, I have no idea. But
I'm just gonna go ahead and say, yeah, it is. And I hope that the English listeners don't get mad. All two of them.
I feel like I told this to somebody once, and they were trying to figure out which Stag's Head in London it was, and I was like, I don't know, man. It just went there and played the show. It was this old.
Was it the one by?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I don't know well enough. I'm sorry, but it had like a dining room area in the front. It was like a very English pub, like with a fireplace and stuff. And then there was this really small venue, and we didn't even use we had to get a touring sound guy / driver because I just couldn't drive our standard car in Amsterdam. It like almost broke my brain. But
you gave it a shot? You did? You tried?
I made it through Amsterdam in the standard that I just learned how to drive standard, but like I almost was like completely fried by the time we left.
Wait, standard meaning what? What do you
I mean like not automatic or whatever.
Manual.
How to do proper gear shifting like on the fly, and then like 2 days later I was like driving it in Amsterdam trying to get us to a show, and it was like just one of the scarier things I've ever done.
And opposite, right? Is it or is it going the same way?
Not opposite there. We had a car that was rented from Europe, so it's the steering wheel is on the left side like you would expect in North America. And I luckily got a driver before we got to the UK because I was pretty much gearing up to be like, I'm going to drive on the wrong side of the road with the wheel on the wrong side. And also like, on the wrong side for where you're driving.
Sure.
Driving in London and driving standard. So we had a driver touring sound guy. He was really good, but he didn't want to mix that place because he was like, this place has like it's like just like a shitty board. It has like a couple PA speakers on a stick, and you don't need me. So
at the Staghorn? Oh, come on, man. That's just a reputable place.
Yeah. So we dropped off by our driver, and then the local sound guy mixed us. And in Europe, they're like, our band's not even that loud comparatively to like a lot of harder rock bands. But in Europe, they're so against loud noise at shows, so that you're always fighting with them to like just try to get a decent guitar sound. And this one show at the Stag's Head, the sound guy who was the local sound guy at the bar, we did like our sound check, like kind of pushing our volume a little bit. And then he was like, sounds great, but like you guys could probably just turn the guitars up. And we were all like, whoa. And then we just like turned up, and the PA was so not powerful that we did this whole show where like we were doing like pretty intricate 3-part harmony stuff, and then a lot of intricate guitar, like heavy guitar stuff. So every time it got to the harmony stuff, the whole band would like instinctively play like super quiet so that the vocals were like coming out through the PA. But then every time we got to like the rock section, the whole band would like come up like this much. And it was like the most intense show. And we played like a sold out show, but this room was so small. It was probably like 80 people max, but they were like packed in like sardines, and they were actually there to see us on like the other shows on that tour. And I had a lot of emotion to blow off from all the things that had gone poorly on that tour for me personally. And we just like knocked the people out, and it felt amazing. Like the band was so much more dynamic than you get to be at most live shows, where like we could really like be fucking loud in the loud parts, but then be like totally quiet with soft harmonies. And it was just one of those moments. There's a few shows like that, but that was the one that came to mind first. But there's a few shows like that where I feel like the connection between the audience and the band was like really organic and was really like palpable. And sometimes you're kind of just playing on a stage, and there's like a smoke machine going on, and the lights are in your eyes, and there's like just a dark like crowd outside, and the sound guy is so in control of your sound that you don't even know if you actually sound like you want to sound. And those shows, I don't know if I feel quite as like actually like there's a communion going on between me and the crowd. But that one, both for the fact that it was just under very stressful circumstances, and that it was like this crazy release, and that like I remember people coming up and talking to me for like a long time after, because I was just selling t-shirts off the stage, just being like, I remember someone walked up to me and said, how are you guys this good, and like nobody knows about you, and you played a place this small? And I remember like laughing while I was selling a t-shirt and being like, I mean, if I knew the answer to that, maybe that wouldn't be the case. but I appreciate the compliment.
That's a great story. So what is like I mean, nothing good came from a show. Do you have one of those stories that like really sticks out?
Yeah.
Like, this is horrible, like worst circumstance?
The worst. It's funny because on that last record cycle, LA became really good for us, and actually kind of overtook New York as far as our main place that we played in the States that was good.
They're overtaking Ghostbusters. I mean, that's a huge win.
Well, yeah. And LA's got a lot of significance in my mind too. And also, but like the funny thing was that strangely we were on Burger, which is a West Coast label, was a West Coast label. And we weren't that big in the West Coast, and we were getting really big in New York. But then, I mean, not really big, but we were doing a lot more in New York.
Bigger, yeah.
Yeah, it was much more like when we played New York on that record cycle, it felt like it was worthwhile. And then in LA, it was not the case on that record cycle. And then when we switched over to being on a New York label, then we got much more successful in LA, and those shows were really exciting. And then the New York show, we did only one New York show, and it was okay, but it didn't really feel like it was like LA really felt like palpably like it was growing. But before that, if you want to talk about bad shows.
Oh yeah, I do.
On the previous record cycle, I should leave specific names and labels out of this, but we were getting a lot of buzz. Things are going really well. We were playing the show in LA and we were going to book it back. We were going to, like, the next day, we are going to like book it back to like play one show and drive for like 3 days and get back to Toronto and then like fly to Europe for the previous European tour. It was like crazy scheduling, but we really wanted to get to LA because we had this dude who really liked our band, who had just signed another big band that we kind of knew, who was really blowing up to a really big indie label. And all of this should probably just remain anonymous for the moment, for the purposes here.
Yeah,
But so
yeah.
it was a big deal. Like, we got to get to LA. We got to play to this dude. We're on a pretty sweet bill. It seemed like it was being put on this like record store, and we didn't really know what to expect. I can't remember if we'd even played LA yet, but we had certainly not had any good experiences in LA if we had played it at all. And so we had no idea what to expect, but we were like, we got to get there. Hopefully we'll play well. Hopefully it helps solidify this connection with this dude. And then we get there and it's like packed. Like, there's tons of people there who are from bands that we know about. Like, it was like indie celebrities were there. We were like, whoa, like this is like the perfect situation. And we're headlining and the promoter like loves us. And he's just like, yeah, you guys have to headline. And we're like, I mean, that seems kind of crazy, but like, sure, man, like this is amazing. Are all these people here to see us? As it turns out, the show goes super late. Nobody sticks around to see us. And the band before us borrows our bass amp in return for us using their guitar amp. And then first song of our set, it turns out they blew up our bass amp. So now we're like trying to play fast. Like, we were trying to like get into the set fast enough to like not lose the crowd, because we can see that we're just like, oh no, we're just like gonna play to nobody here. And then as we're doing that, the bass amp blows up on the first song. So now we're like stuck there just being like, and like the whole crowd's just like leaving and we're just like standing on stage. Like, it's one of those moments where you're just like, what can we do to get through the set? So it took us a while of like standing around being like, and then we like used, the other band had lent us their guitar amp in return for the bass amp that we lent them. So we used the old Bassman that the guy lent us, which is technically like a bass amp, but no one ever uses them for bass amps and they're not very good to be used for bass amps. And we used that as like his old really nice vintage Bassman as a bass amp, which he was then mad at us about after the set, because it might not have been the nicest thing, but it was like one of those split-second moments of like, are we just not going to play, or are we going to rewire the stage somehow and keep playing? And ultimately, right. Like I just know that, anyways, long story short,
No, please don't. I mean, if you could get into it, I mean, without getting yourself in trouble, I would love to hear it.
I mean, ultimately, all that happened was just basically like, I could just tell that like the A&R dude like came with his girlfriend, and that it was just like obviously not the best time to see us. And the thing is, like, if you would have come to any other show on that tour where things were actually going pretty well, we'd been on a really good roll, we had every reason to expect that we were like, this is going to be sweet. And everything that led up to the moment of the show was like, so like, wow, this is perfect. I can't believe we're playing the show. It was kind of like the experience of the first show in New York, except for it started out like that, where it was like, wow, now the first time we play LA, I think, if I remember correctly, is going to be like the perfect time to play LA. Like, we're just like the luckiest people ever. And then it was just like, boom, 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 boom. Everybody leaves. And bass amp blows up. Use the guy's amp. He's mad about it. We're like, just totally. And then the A&R guys obviously kind of like weirded out and like not getting a great feeling for it. And ultimately we never got signed to that label, which could be for the best, or who knows? I don't know. Maybe it would have been better to be signed to that label. But that was one of those times where you just like, so then we start the like incredibly long 3-day drive back to Toronto with one show in the middle, like leaving on this super down note of like, we've like booked this LA show really kind of out of our way just to be like, we really have to just get there and crush this show. And then you're just like driving on the highway at night after the show, just like, that didn't go how we'd hoped it would go. So, you get through it, you live through it. That one kind of hurt for a while, but it ultimately other things shook loose, and as I was saying before, I haven't quite hit that brick wall. That one seemed like it could have almost been a brick wall, but we figured out a way around it, and lived to fight another day.
Sure. And now, what is like a really just great show like that really stands out to you in a positive light?
That's a good one. Well, I'm trying to think. There's been a bunch of, the best, probably the most exciting show that we've done thus far. And I mean, there's been other ones maybe that like would be better examples of like us headlining and us not riding on anyone else's coattails, but this was still very just like striking. Was we did a show we toured with King Gizzard in like 2015 or 16, like when they were just blowing up, and I didn't really even, I guess I was a little late to them as well. I didn't really know a bunch about them before the tour, but
same here. I mean, still, I mean, they're great though.
Yeah, they are great. And I didn't know much about them. They're an insane live band. They were also doing an interesting era of their stuff that had a lot of, it was like kind of between records, and they're kind of just doing like a bunch of highlights from their records up until that point in time. The next time I saw them, they'd put out like Non-Again Infinity, and it was all just like crazy, like intense, like rock. Like every song was just like, but like at that time, it was a really varied set. It was a really interesting time to hang out with them. And, you know, they're a great band at all times, but that was an interesting time to tour with them. And they were just kind of, we did a lot of shows in the South. And the shows were good. They were always packed, but they were a lot of smaller venues and smaller markets in the South and stuff. But it closed with the Music Hall of Williamsburg in Brooklyn, and that's a big venue. I mean, for us at the time, especially, and like much bigger than everything else on the tour. And we were the direct support. And I guess we were doing well enough that enough people in the crowd kind of were like excited to see us. It wasn't entirely the experience of being an opening band, which I've certainly had, of just being like, okay, just get these guys out of here so I can watch the next band. It was like just crazy. Like, you know, we were like, it was just one of those times where it's like, I can't remember if there was curtains, there might've been curtains, but there's definitely the experience of like real show business feeling of like, you're in your dressing room and then your agents and people are like, okay, it's time for you guys to go on. And you're like standing out like on the edge of the stage, and you could just hear the murmur of like a big crowd, like to a balcony packed and the whole floor packed. And it like, I was, you know, at the time, I think I already felt like a little bit of like a jaded veteran. I don't often get like nerves or like jitter or like performance anxiety that I guess could just be energy or whatever. But usually I'm just kind of like, I don't know, whatever. I'm just going to play the show. I do this all the time. But then I was like standing out there with just like this blind, like you're just like going to walk out into this huge room with tons of people there. I started to get like actual really like jittery, and then we go out and it's pitch black, and then the lights come up and there's like people like throwing beach balls around and stuff. Like it kind of, you know, it was a much smaller version, but it sort of felt like that scene at the beginning of The Song Remains the Same, the Zeppelin video, where it's like,
oh yeah,
light down and it goes on, and there literally were beach balls and stuff like that shot. And then people were like, some people in the front were singing around and people were really responding well to it. That was definitely one of those moments where you're like, holy shit, that was crazy. Like that was just so much of a bigger audience than we were used to at that moment and the rest of the tour. And it was just such a huge shoot up. And it was also feeling the energy of like, I think that was one of those times when like King Gizzard was really like turning that corner. Like the fact that they could sell out that place was like the beginning of them rising to the massive fame that they have now. So that was a crazy moment that felt very like just kind of impressive and left a mark on me.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I feel like it would. I mean, to play with them, it's great, and they're so orchestrated, especially two drummer. That situation is just fucking insane. I couldn't even imagine doing that. I mean, that's great that they're doing it. How did you get involved with going on tour with them? Like, how did that come about?
They're on Panache, which is my booking agency, Van and Still in the States and in North America, and so that was the connection. And they're managed by Michelle, who manages Mac.
Michelle Cable, love Michelle Cable, very nice woman.
Definitely, and she's Mac's manager. I mean, I'm on Panache partially because of Mac. I mean, I think it's also partially because Michelle liked me, and I've had a good relationship with them. But the initial connection was me. Like, I haven't called in a lot of favors to Mac, but I wrote him at one point. Was like, hey, can you just give me the Panache email? And then he hooked me up. So it was very kind of him to not tell me to take a hike, and that ended up leading to however many years it's been now of being booked by Panache. But that was how the King Gizzard thing happened.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I mean, it's really nice of Mac to do that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's a good dude. I actually also ended up, we're giving Mac shout outs right now. When the pandemic,
no, we are.
I was really stuck on the album. Like I kind of wasn't working with my same producer anymore, and I was not really sure what I was going to do because I was in full out isolation. And me and Mac were like kind of had isolated for a long period of time. And I was like, would you be cool if like socially distanced came over and just worked at your studio for a bit? So me and him did like some of the tracking on this record just for fun.
This last one.
The one that's not out yet. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And we'll get to that. Don't worry. We're gonna.
Yeah. So that one, that's like
plug it.
This is but yeah. So Mac has a little a role in this record a little bit. It wasn't a huge thing. We just did some tracking for a bit until I kind of got back on track and figured out how I was going to finish the record. But he is on the record a little bit, playing a handful of like just like sort of small auxiliary additions, and was just kind of cool about letting me come over and hang out in his garage and do some stuff. So
yeah, it's super nice. So I've seen some pictures of his studio. It looks pretty nice.
A crazy studio. I mean, there's some of the nicest gear that I've personally messed with in that session. he's got a crazy studio, but he's just also been very generous and cool about being like, hey, it's my old bud I gave Chicken Box to, and I go, he can just come over and use my studio, or I'll get him on my, I'll introduce him to Michelle. So he's been very helpful to me.
And you're gonna invite him over to your shingles party, and that's gonna happen.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm gonna pay him back tenfold.
Yeah. Yeah. It's he seems very, very nice man. I've in my experience with him is a very nice guy. Oh, we're moving.
He's going to die. I'm sorry.
It's fine. We're on the move. No, it's good. We're off the cuff.
Let me just make sure that this is gonna work.
Yeah. No, it's you're perfectly fine, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about my lack of professionality. I felt
no, it's good. It's good. It brings new life into this, pumping new blood in the veins. Man. Boom, done. Green light on, right?
Exactly. I'm probably backlit now. I decided not to do it in here because of the lighting, but now this is what we have.
It's good.
Okay, perfect.
And we went on the move. It was great. I got a quick tour. It looks nice. I mean, the
nice house. It's a little messy right now, but it's a nice place. I've been busy with the mixing of my album and also working on many live streams for Pearl, so I haven't been doing as many dishes as I probably should be doing.
It's all right. Dishes don't pay the bills,
Definitely not. They don't.
Yeah. That's the deal. With Mac, is he just doing analog stuff still, or
he does both?
Okay.
But he has a crazy collection of stuff though. We actually also did this. We did me and Pearl did a thing where we did like a duo version of a song by the band. It's like a Christmas song.
I heard it. It was great.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
We recorded that at Mac's studio too. And that was like, he always has like a bunch of different people like leaving gear at his studio on top of the fact that he also has really nice gear himself. But yeah, for a while there, he had like this Ampex 8-track 1-inch machine, I think, which is,
oh, wow.
It's like late 60s. It's the same machine that Daptone uses actually. And then and then he also has like this 90s, like 16, or maybe it's more like track, like totally like late, like early 90s, like last of the tape machines ever built, basically. Like it's like, it's just basically like, I think it's the kind of thing that like Voodoo by D'Angelo would have been recorded on. Like it's just like tape when they were like on the verge of sounding like, on the verge of going fully digital, and on the verge of like fully fixing all issues with tape, which is like debatable whether you want that or not, depending on what kind of era of recording you're looking for. But he has some crazy gear,
and he's a crazy nice guy too.
Yes, exactly. Very good.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, man. And I mean, you've obviously had like a quite a bit of a career in this. I mean, just music in general. Yeah. No, please go ahead. You're about to say something really interesting. I know.
I was just going to say that, yeah, it's just been, I mean, I probably started playing in bands when I was like 15. And then it's been probably since I was like 18 or 19 that I've been moving towards more and more sort of serious full-time pursuit of it. So it's been a while now. Sometimes it's kind of crazy to be like, it's been maybe 13, 14 years. And that's not counting the like early days of hall shows in high school. So
yeah. I mean, the math went out and the music came in. That's
exactly.
Just what happened.
Now I just don't even know how many years it's been, which is maybe for the best. It was maybe always the best strategy to drop the math.
That's right. Yeah. No, I mean, you got to make certain sacrifices, and that's one that has to. It's fine. It's fine.
It had to go.
You can look it up if you really want the number.
Exactly.
No, but you've obviously were helping Pearl out with her new album. Is it kind of a mutual thing that you run ideas by her and she runs it by you, and you guys kind of collaborate in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, our collaboration was sort of an interesting way that it came about. We like met sort of through the internet, but sort of through some friends of mine who I knew from Toronto who had co-written a song with her. And I just, we just started talking, and then we really hit it off. And then I came to LA, and it wasn't like, I mean, we got along on a musical sense, but it was definitely like a romantic thing. It wasn't like, we were kind of like, we were sending each other songs, but we were flirting a lot and whatever. And then it was like at a certain point in time, I came down here, down to LA, we met, we hit it off, things are good. I was like, I pretty much have no reason to live in Montreal anymore, so I'm going to go to LA, and it would be fun to just be close to Pearl and stuff and be down here, and also just check out the LA scene and stuff as well as a side thing. And so that was all cool. And then I kind of just started bouncing down here as often as I could. And I keep saying here, which is I'm in Landers, but I was talking about
we know.
Yeah. But so I was like bouncing down to LA as often as I could. And then they were recording already. And the interesting thing is like her record and my record were both, her record was almost entirely written. I guess I co-wrote a little bit of stuff, like rewrote some lyrics with her on some stuff, but mainly her record, her and her producer had already like figured out what they were doing. But I'd also had a large, I think I wrote a few things after I met Pearl, but I had a large amount of my record sort of figured out too. And it was one of those just kind of weird cosmic synchronistic things. There was a lot of similarities between the albums. We definitely have our own spins on things at the end of the day. Like I don't think anyone's going to confuse my record or for a Pearl Charles record at the end of the day. But it was definitely like certain tracks have like very similar titles. Certain, like she has a song called "That's What I Need," or I think it's just called "What I Need." She always gets annoyed that I say that's. But then I have a song called "Exactly What I Needed," and they're like kind of a similar lyrical concept, but those were both written long before we knew each other. So it was just kind of weird. We were both kind of like, this is interesting. Our records are definitely like kind of weirdly companion pieces, but we didn't know each other when we did a lot of the writing for them. And so then by the time I came down and started to hang out, she was recording and they had some of the album already recorded before I was around at all. But then her and her producer, Louis Pesikov, were just really cool about like, I had no sort of like design on, I had no sort of intention to be like, I'm going to go to these sessions and I'm going to get on this thing and start getting some writing credits, like play some piano and guitar and like get my print on this thing. But
I'm getting royalties, whether you like it or not. I'm coming
exactly.
in. That was your move. I get it. It's
Exactly.
fine.
I was really like just there to chill. And then they kind of would like look at me and be like, hey, do you want to play piano or harpsichord or guitar or whatever on this track? Like whenever it came up. And I was always kind of like, do you want me to? Like, I wasn't like, I'm not warmed up or planning on playing or like, I don't know the song, but sure, if you want to give me a shot at it. And then it all worked out really well. And that ended up sort of leading to Louis and I actually spent after Mac, I went over to Louis's with my record for a while. So that kind of like influenced things, the fact that Louis got involved in my music too. And Pearl sang a bunch of harmonies on my record and definitely it definitely just gave me a lot of feedback on everything. Like by the time I knew her, everything I was writing, I would like bounce over to her. And oftentimes she would be very helpful in the sense of like, I would work on something. I'd sometimes go back to Edmonton and work kind of in isolation in my mom's attic for a while when Pearl was busy with something else. And I'd kind of like just work on something till I was like, oh, this sounds awful. I don't know what the hell this is. And then I'd send it to Pearl and she'd be like, this is great. And I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe it's, or like, or she might be like, maybe not so much that one, but she kind of be the person who was able to be like a nice, a good, like, I really trust her taste in music and she'd be good. Somebody who can give really good feedback with that. And ultimately came in and did some really great harmony stuff where we layered her vocal with my vocal, which kind of gave this record a bit of a different sort of feel than the last one.
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, that's great that you could bounce it off each other. And it's, I mean, obviously you guys are in the same realm of, I mean, music, the way that you guys are making music. And that's great that you have something to bounce it off, especially in this time that she's just so close. I mean, obviously you guys living together.
Yeah.
It's just so close. Like, hey, what do you think about this? That's great. I mean, I think that's really awesome.
It is really awesome. It's a nice thing to have. I've never really had that I've never had a relationship with another like musician who's pursuing music as seriously as I am and who's done it for so long. So it's like really kind of, an equal footing thing where you can really trust the other person's opinion on things, where sometimes in other relationships, you're kind of like, hey, what do you think about this? And they're like, I don't know. I mean, it seems cool. And they're like, okay, well, that doesn't really help me that much. So I have to ask somebody else about this. But Pearl's really like, the other thing about dating Pearl is like, she's the only person that I've dated that has like stumped me on records so often. Like I'm used to being the one like, do you know this record? And they're like, no, I don't know this record. And I'm like, yeah, I know some pretty cool stuff. And like with Pearl, I'm like, hey Pearl, do you know this record? And she's like, yeah, I know that one. And I'm like, okay. And then she's like, do you know this one? And I'm like, no, this is
nope.
What is this? Like, so that's been kind of the dynamic between us, is mostly her like teaching me a lot about a lot of crazy music, which is interesting. And like, yeah, not what I'm used to, which is great.
That's awesome. When you first moved to the US, it was to LA. That was the first move?
Yeah, I never lived down here. I mean, I spent a lot of time in New York because of recording in Daptone for the last record. But never lived there. I almost moved to New York for a second. I was like right before I met Pearl, I was really seriously thinking about moving to the States, and I kind of already had LA sort of in my mind, but I for a while was like, well, I have so many connections in New York. Maybe New York is the place that I should go to first. And maybe if I'm feeling good about that, maybe like in a year or two, I'll move to LA. And then, yeah, a few months after kicking that around, I met Pearl and I was like, I mean, considering I just want to keep hanging out with Pearl, and also I already thought that LA might be a cool place to live. I was like, I might as well just take the leap and just go all the way to LA. It's pretty much like almost exactly opposite North America from Montreal. So it was a pretty big jump over the whole continent, but managed to get it done and managed to get down here.
That's awesome, man. That's great. So, I mean, thank you for coming on first. I mean, this has been fucking fantastic.
Right on, man.
Oilers.
Thanks.
Oilers first and foremost. But anyways, I want to do some promotional stuff with you real quick. Okay, so you got a new album.
Yeah.
That you've been teasing on the Instagram, and everybody's getting real pissed at you, man. Can you tell us anything about it without getting you into trouble or nothing?
I can tell you something about it. I don't know what it's going to be called. I've had some working titles, but I'm still trying to feel that out. But we're actually mixing it long distance right now. We had to take a little break, and we're back to it. And today, I think we might actually finish the mix. We've been bouncing some stuff between. It's been this guy, James Valentine in Austin is the mixer. He's done some really cool stuff, like some Spoon records and some like White Denim records, a bunch of crazy stuff, and also just a bunch of crazy like real Texas like Southern stuff, like Double Trouble records and stuff. He's done some crazy stuff, but he's mixing it, and it's me and Gabe Roth, who runs Daptone and who engineers like most of the Daptone stuff. We're just kind of all like long distance COVID style texting each other and getting on conference calls. And right before I got on the interview, I heard what is probably getting pretty close to the last mix of the last song. So as soon as probably, in a few hours today, we're going to be done mixing, and we might we might do a couple more like slight small treatments to the finished mixes before we send it to the mastering place. But we're really, really close to mastering, and then we'll be, I thought this was going to be done in like April. Like I was pretty confident, and we were recording in March, and then COVID happened and everyone had to go home. And then it's just been like this crazy, like, who am I going to work with? How am I going to get this together? And now, in late January, we're very, very close to being done the last mix now. So that's exciting news to pass along.
That's awesome, man. That's so good to hear. And I mean, I bet that's like a burden off your shoulders. Like, yes, it's finally here. It's almost done. That's perfect, man.
I think it served the record better that it took all this time. Like the circumstances forced me to really focus on the record and go through a lot of different second opinions and people coming through and adding things. I think it's turned out better than it would have otherwise, but I don't know if it was better for me, like as a mentally to have to like linger with the record for as long as we have.
Right.
So it is going to be a relief, but I do think it's worked out really well.
Awesome, man. And Whirlpool, Too Bad, So Sad, Lost Something, Sleep With Me, and It's a New Day Tonight, all available at michaelrault.bandcamp.com. You can buy all of the audio there. There's some good songs on there. I mean, I highly recommend it. And also, I'll Be There and Sleep With Me, the 45 is available at daptonerecords.com, right?
And yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and the hard copy of it, it's a new day tonight, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and soon we'll have for the new one too.
Sweet, and to keep an eye out for that. And yeah, I mean, and that'll be on Bandcamp and Daptone, and everybody will see it, right?
It'll be the same thing, yeah, all over the place. And you can follow me on the socials if you feel like keeping up, and I'll definitely talk about it a lot when it's ready.
Throw it out there for people that don't know. It's just at Michael Rault, right?
Oh yeah, at Michael Rault, I think. Or is it? Shoot, I'm so stupid that I put underscore in one of them and not one of them.
Boy.
I feel like Instagram it might just be straight Michael Rault.
I believe it is. I don't think there's any underscore, but maybe Twitter.
I think Twitter maybe has an underscore. That seems it's a poorly made choice on my part, but that's how it goes.
But it is what it is. It's done. It's there. What are you gonna do?
That's how it goes. You just got to sometimes just keep rolling.
Awesome. Is there anything else that we should promote that people should know about?
I mean, yeah, you can check out Pearl Charles' Magic
new album. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you feel like catching up on some of that stuff that we're talking about, and we're doing a lot of cool live streams for a bunch of blogs and stuff. I have one that I've been engineering them too, and playing on them. So we've got one that I'm going to have to start mixing today. That's going to come out sometime in the next week or so on the Line of Best Fit blog in the UK, and they're really cool. Those are if you're feeling like you're missing out on listening to like a live guitar band in a living room, in these times when it's not possible. These are pretty fun little videos to kind of make you feel like you're at a sweaty house party show, maybe.
Stuck together. Sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this, Michael. I really appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me, man. That was really fun.
Yeah, I'll talk to you in 1 second. I'm gonna start recording this.